I'm at Lake Fairfax in Reston, Virginia, and this is a skate park review.
Lake Fairfax Skatepark is a 15,000 square foot all cement park. Entering the park, you'll find a flat bar, a wedge-to-wedge hip, another wedge with an extension on top and a box with metal edges, another wedge-to-wedge hip set up much like the other side, a box with metal edges that has a gap, and ledge extensions on either side of the box. Both ledges have metal edges. A spine wedge obstacle with round metal coping, an A-frame box with metal edges, a wedge setup with a hubba that has metal edges, a 5-stair with a round rail, another wedge hubba setup. The hubba has metal edges, a rollover obstacle with round metal coping, a wedge to pole jam, a parking block and curb with metal edge, a small pyramid with metal edges that sits on a small wedge, a wall with metal edges that goes into a wedged hip. In the back of the park, there's a cement bowl. The bowl goes from 4 foot into a 6 foot and 8 foot sections. The bowl has metal coping and a few hips. There's also a large box that sits on the deck of the 4 foot section. A box with metal edges that sits on a small wedge, 2 stairs with a small wall that has metal edges, and a small wedge section. A box with metal edges that sits on top of a wedge, four stairs with flat rails on either side of it, and another wedge. An A-frame rail that sits on top of a wedge-to-wedge. There's also a wedge gap on this feature. And an A-frame hubba with metal edges that sits on the inside of this feature as well.
Well, that was Lake Fairfax Skatepark in Reston, Virginia. This is a pretty fun park. It's more street-oriented than anything else, but there's a bowl in the back of the park that's pretty fun once you figure a couple lines out. If you want to stop by, I'll leave the address in the description below.